Hello everyone and welcome back to PropTech Power Talks. I'm Zeenish and today I'm excited to dive into the world of architecture, design innovation and human-centered spaces with a very special guest, Enrique Soler. Enrique, welcome to the show and please go ahead with your introduction.
Thank you very much, Zeenish. Thank you very much for having me. And my name is Enrique Soler, and I am a design director in 𝗣𝗿𝗀𝗀, a design and build company. I'm trained as an architect. I've worked in the architectural field, and lately for the last few years in the interior design world, probably for the last 15 years. And I work on a variety of things, mixing the technical bits of architecture with the creative side of interior design. I've worked for contractors and now in area design and build, making sure that everything is part of a collaborative process. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
Well, let's jump right in. I'm looking forward to uncovering your design philosophy and how it intersects with innovation and strategy in today's built environment. You've worked across such a wide range of sectors, from retail to mixed-use developments. How do you approach design when the needs, functions, and end users of a space vary so drastically? What are the core principles that remain constant in your work?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Zeenish. So you will see, especially nowadays, a lot of specialization and designers in particular who work in one sector predominantly. And I've tried to, in my experience, get away from that and work in as many sectors as possible, because I think designers and architects, what we have in common is that we are very curious about humans and human nature. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create spaces for humans. And this is all that we can all relate to. So whether you're doing retail, residential, hospitality, commercial, at the center of it is just people like you and me. So I just happen to have some training and experience and some tools about how to make the environment around us perform in certain ways, but what that performance should respond to, I think that is something that humans naturally know, or we should know. We should be like listening to ourselves. So there's a part of the architectural profession that is very sociophilic, if I can coin a word, like interested in sociology and the human nature. So that is the core thing. So whatever you do, I think if you can make a space good enough to enable a human to reach their full potential, whatever they're doing, whether it's an office or an operating theater or a restaurant, then you're doing your job well as a designer. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it really speaks to the human-centered nature of your practice. So you were trained in both Spain and Japan, two countries with very distinct architectural traditions. How have those influences shaped your design mindset, and how do you integrate those learnings into your work in the UK?
So when I was living in Spain, I became very, very interested in Japanese culture. So that's how I ended up doing my final year of university there. And what I noticed by living and studying in Japan is it didn't only influence me as a designer. I think it influenced my whole perspective as a human being. Because culturally it's a very, very different country from most Western countries. I would argue, not only Spain but also the UK. So one thing I realized when I lived in Japan and studied in Japan is, first of all, that a lot of my preconceived ideas when I was back in Spain needed revision. And that I thought that was very, very interesting. So I learned a lot because I was in university. So I learned a lot about materials and approach to design and design philosophy from a Japanese point of view, which is, of course, very, very, very different from the Spanish method. But also by living there, I got very curious about different ways of living, different ways of experience, culture, approach to history, approach to social relationships. And in fact, what that happened, what that made me realize is that I became more hungry. So after Japan, I didn't come back to Spain. I never returned to Spain after Japan. Actually, I went and lived in the Netherlands, and then I came to the UK. And probably the reason why I stayed in the UK and working in London is London happens to be a very multicultural city, so it keeps getting all these influences from all these types of different cultures. So that, I think, that has made me definitely, it has improved my perspective as a designer. So I'm aware that that's a very wide answer to your question, but I believe the rest are just tools, you know what I mean? So you can learn a bit about materials and about systems, and by all means, like, I can tell you that in Japanese architecture, there would be more emphasis on certain types of details or systems, where in Spain we use a lot of concrete, for instance, or bricks, or in the UK, there is more approach to, steel work, things like that. At the end of the day, those are tools, that's our palette. But what you learn as a designer is to experience different cultures. And that's, I think, it's a very, very valuable asset to have.
Yeah, fascinating. It must bring a lot of richness to your projects. So leading a multidisciplinary, if you talk about leading a multidisciplinary team, it can be much about collaboration as it is about creativity. How do you foster innovation within your team while maintaining high standards of quality and technical precision?
Yeah, that's it. It all boils down to the culture within the team, and the culture is in all aspects of leading and managing a team, from the very first moment that you're recruiting people, on how you are talking to people, making sure that they talk amongst themselves. So for me in my teams, it's very, very important that we're constantly talking to each other. There's also a sense of humility. You need to be humble. It doesn't matter how many years of experience you might have or how many countries you might have lived in. You never know where the next good idea is going to come from. You really don't. And the best way to increase your chances to get a good idea is to talk to more people, be exposed to different perspective and approaches. So I try to do that. I try to allow for cross-pollination of ideas, and I try to make my team stay humble, stay hungry, and just for them to remember that there's a difference between a person who has 10 years of experience and a person who has 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. I want my team to be the former. And you can only do that by making a safe space to enable people to take risks, to collaborate, to talk amongst themselves, things like that.
That's great vision. So if we talk about the design build process, it often involves balancing aesthetic ambition with practical constraints. How do you manage the tension between creative freedom and the realities of budget, regulation, and technical feasibility?
And I currently work for a design and build company, so this is probably the best place to address that. And in my career, I have been steering towards that direction. So for the past 11 years, I have been working for contractors in a design and build company. Before that, I used to work in purely architectural or design studios. And what I have noticed is that when you have siloed professions, like, the architect is here, the structural engineer is here, the contractor is here, that communication is a bit more difficult. It's not impossible, but it's more difficult. And so then you have all these different elements and the different approaches, and they're all valid. So you have budget constraints, absolutely. You have technical constraints, whatever, the materials that you're using allow you to do with what the discoverables of the buildings and the technical abilities your team might have. All of that, the only way to make that happen, to make that align and pull in the same direction, is through collaboration. And this is why I have been going into that direction in terms of my professional career, and I work now for a design and build company. So a small aside, if you think about the architectural profession, until 200 years ago, architects used to be always based on science. So, for centuries, an architect was basically, in fact, the word architect actually comes from master builder. So it used to be just the person on the side who was more knowledgeable and led the whole team, but also was leading with the budget, with the technical bit. Just in the Industrial Revolution, we started, like specializing and going in different directions, and there was a time and a place for that, and it made sense. But nowadays, it might be a bit too siloed, so I think it's time to start trying to pull it back together because we get better results.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So if we talk about sustainability, there's a lot of conversation going around it. Wellness and smart design also. How do these themes show up in your projects, and how do you ensure they go beyond just buzzwords?
Buzzwords, that's the danger, because nowadays everyone's talking about sustainability, circularity, wellness, even regenerative, and we're talking more and more, and definitely smart solutions. And there is a risk, as you rightly say, there's a risk that they become buzzwords, because if everyone wants that, if your clients wants that, then you will start getting more and more more and more suppliers and more designers that just say yes, just say yes just to get in. You know what I mean? So we have a responsibility, we have an opportunity, but also a responsibility as designers, as architects, as contractors, to go deeper. So it needs to be embedded in our philosophy, in our approach to things, in the way we talk, in the way we choose projects, in the way we choose clients, in the way we start designing a space. So when we talk about sustainability or wellness or smart technology, the last thing that will be, the last outcome that we will get will be, say, a piece of recycled material, or a sensor that will measure the efficiency of a particular room. Those would be actually the last things in the process. The very first things is the philosophy, making sure that you are thinking in terms of the planet, or the timescales of the planet in terms of sustainability. So then when you're approaching the materiality of the project, then you're not thinking, a 5-year lease or whatever it is. You are thinking, actually, how can I make this space something that lives in harmony with our planet, and lives it in a better place that it was when we got there first. Or similar with wellness, it's not about scoring points in a matrix. It's like, these people are going to work here, and these are human beings. How can we really responsible make these people's experience as best as possible? So it all starts from a conceptual point of view. Once you have that sorted, then it just comes across. Clients will know it in your conversations, and then sometimes you do have to take risk. And if a client is using all these buzzwords, as you say, but then there's no depth behind it, if you can afford it, maybe it's time to part ways with that client, because that client is not ready to work with you. So sometimes you have to make difficult decisions with that. Or the best possible scenario would be that you can try and educate the client. It's like, well, you probably want to cut some to cut some costs and make savings here, but this will have an impact on the immediate environment of your space and on your people, on your staff, and you will see increase in well-being. And therefore, your company will benefit from that, and there will be lots of measurable outcomes from that. So you can educate, but it's all in the philosophy and approach and education. The rest are just tools, in my opinion.
Yes, embedding those principles in the design DNA rather than treating them later as afterthoughts is so crucial.
100%.
So technology is transforming how we experience and build spaces. From your perspective, how is tech reshaping the role of architects and interior designers, and what excites you the most about the future?
Yeah, this is a particularly exciting time to be an architect or an interior designer, because we are in the middle, we have been in the middle of a technological revolution for the past, arguably, I don't know, 30 years, something like that, and it's still going. And we can benefit from that massively. So from an architectural point of view, there's so many things happening. So innovation in materials that can lead to regenerative and circular and sustainable outcomes. So we can reuse waste and turn it into actually very efficient materials. So you might have heard about hempcrete. So it's like sort of like a concrete material made out of hemp that has not only sequesters carbon, which is one of the main issues to be tackled by technology, but also has very good thermal properties, and it's a fantastic building material. And it also has some aesthetic properties. Used in the right way, it can create very, very interesting environments. So that's one thing. So you have the innovation in materials, but then you also have the technology approach to data. So now we're getting more and more data from our buildings and from our spaces. So that's creating a very interesting feedback loop. So in the past, when we designed spaces, there was a bit of a leap of faith. Like, okay, this, based on my experience, I think this is going to generate space where people will thrive. But now we can have instant feedback of that, and that is fantastic. That thanks to technology. We have things like digital twins that let architects and designers actually follow in real time, get actual very rich data about how a building is performing, and then through iterations you can keep improving. So there is no excuse not to keep learning and improving in the type of environment that we use. So, and obviously now the word that everyone will probably be talking about at the conference this year is AI. And AI is such a wide range of topics, to be honest with you. So from an architectural point of view, I'm particularly interested in how AI, so architecture and construction has a lot of complex processes that most people don't see. So when people think about AI in architecture and design, most people would think about generating images and, you know, generating an animation or a render. I'm not particularly inclined to think in that direction. I am actually thinking that the richness of potential of AI is in all this complexity that the process of a building needs. And there's a lot of developments that in the AI technology that don't sound or don't look as sexy as a, you know, beautiful photo generated in 3 seconds, but actually they make the creation and construction of fantastic, beautiful spaces much easier. And that is where AI, I think, is going to help us a lot. So it's an incredibly exciting time to be working in architecture right now.
Yeah, design and tech evolving hand in hand. It's an exciting frontier for the built environment.
It is.
So my final question for you would be, what advice would you give to the emerging architects and designers who want to lead in this new era of integrated, human-focused and tech-enabled spaces?
And that's a question that connects very well to the last one, isn't it? Because it's a great time. It's a great time to be an architect because there's lots of potential sources of inspiration. So what I would, I mean, I'm not very big on giving advice. I don't think I'm good at it. But if I were to give advice to young people like leaving the university now and starting a career in design or architecture, it's like compared to the rest of history, you have the best tools exponentially that are available to designers right now. Like the difference in tools from now to say 5 years ago is massive compared to 5 years ago and 50 years ago. So it's a really, really exciting times to start being an architect or being a designer. Definitely, there's obviously a lot of fears about, machines taking our jobs and stuff, but I will not go there. I like to be positive and think that we have an incredible amount of tools and technology at our disposal. So young architects, definitely, it's a very exciting time for them, but I would also say it also encompasses the responsibility, the need to try and level up and be able to leverage all that. Like when you have such powerful tools,
No.
there is a responsibility as a designer that you really want to become the best possible designer to be able to. So it's like, I don't know, if you're a musician and somebody gives you a Stradivarius violin or a Steinway piano, you want to be the best possible pianist to make the most out of it. Otherwise, it's gonna sound a bit rubbish. So it's great that there are some tools there, but it's also exciting because it would encourage, and I hope it encourages young designers to take us to the next level. I can't wait to see what new designers are going to do.
And they have to keep leveling up because there is no end to the evolution that we're in.
Exactly. So it's exciting, but it requires some work. So not to sound corny, but with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Well, thank you, Enrique. Thank you for joining me today and sharing your commitment to building spaces that matter. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Thank you very much.